So Dr. Cantu, you have been doing research in this area for a long period of time. Would you be able to kind of, in a nutshell, give us where you are today, particularly relative to the youth football concussions, and at what age group you feel that it's appropriate to start in terms of tackle football?
Well, I think this is my own opinion, and it's based on the research that we have done through the years in a lot of different areas, and it's also based mostly on just treating patients every year and having seen a number of individuals, not just football, but other sports, having had the academic trajectory of where you would have expected them to be not where it was because of head injuries that have occurred. So whereas I do want sports to be participated in by even larger numbers of individuals than are participating today, and I want people to participate in youth football, I do personally believe that at the very young ages, youth football ought to be flag football. And they should be teaching tackling techniques and tackling drills, but using mannequins and essentially dummies instead of machine hands. Because the young individual brain is particularly susceptible to injury. It's not myelinated, that's the covering of the individual nerve fibers that gives strength to it. Because of that, the young brain is more easily disrupted. It's more susceptible to excitotoxic shock. These young brains are housed in large heads on weak necks, and that bobblehead doll effect means greater impact to the brain from a given level of acceleration blow. And also young brains are lighter, so there's less inertia. It takes less force to put them in motion, shaking them. So they are more vulnerable. Because of that, we feel that youngsters should be starting those collision activities at a later age.
Many parents and some coaches believe that the helmet and the mouthpiece are good preventive measures and help with concussions. What would you tell a parent about that?
It's a myth. The evidence is that mouthpieces do very little, if anything, in terms of preventing concussions. And helmets don't prevent concussions very well either. And the reason is the concussion happens mostly because of rotational forces that come about when the head is quickly moved due to an impact or a whiplash effect. That movement is not attenuated by wearing a helmet. So a helmet does a great job of preventing skull fractures, of preventing a focal impulse, like a ball-peen hammer. If that were to hit your head, you'd have a skull fracture. You didn't have a helmet on. Helmet would protect you. But where the head is taking a blow that's quickly swiveling it, the helmet does very little to reduce those forces. Therefore, the helmet, I think, is important, and they are better than they've ever been. But they will never be the solution, I don't believe, to the issue of concussion.
Some parents and coaches kind of gauge the toughness of a child by his or her ability to stay in the game after an injury. How can we better inform parents about the fact that they have to be able to make a decision to take out a child and have him checked out if there is a sign of a concussion?
Yeah, first I think we have to just understand that neurologic injuries are not like injuries to any other part of the body. And whereas you can play hurt if the injury isn't severe enough, with a strain or a sprain or a little bruise to some other part of the body, you can't safely play at all if you have a brain injury. Any kind of symptom, any level of concussion is enough that that individual should not be participating. So I think we have to have a double standard. When you're worried about a cervical spine or cord injury, when you're worried about a brain injury, any symptoms till ruled out, that individual should be out.
Why do you think it has taken such a long period of time for this issue to become more talked about, particularly in both professional football and now, of course, in youth football?
Well, I think it's kind of a perfect storm, and I honestly believe that the storm started when Ted Johnson went public with his post-concussion syndrome problems from his career with the New England Patriots. And then shortly after that, Alan Swartz started to write articles in the New York Times, many of them, on concussions and concussion-related issues. And then the work that we've been doing at the Center for the Study of Traumatic Encephalopathy at Boston University, where Ann McKee is the world-renowned neuropathologist that heads up the brain bank work. But Bob Stern, Chris Nowinski, and myself were original co-directors of the center. The later life issues with chronic traumatic encephalopathy have now hit the press and are pretty much out there. So I honestly think it's a question that docs have been talking about this for a long time. Lord knows I've been researching it and writing about it for over 30 years, but it's really hit the popular media only in the last 5 to 10 years, and I think that's where it's taken off.
In terms of concussions, is there, and particularly at the youth level, do you see any major difference between boys and girls? Is there a difference there because of the sex or gender, or is it more in terms of just the age?
Well, the interesting thing is that young ladies, whether it be basketball, whether it be ice hockey, or whether it be soccer, have more concussions than guys at the same age.
Really?
And the reasons for it, the two that have been given most often, I think are both probably playing a role, although I think the second one is the more major role. But one is young ladies as a group, not one-to-one, but as a group, are more honest than guys about reporting symptoms. But the second reason is young girls, until very recently, and many even now, don't understand you should be developing neck strength, and you should be working on your neck muscle with a resistive exercise program if you're going to play a contact collision sport. And so necks of girls are weaker. That leads them to be more prone to concussion. Because the stronger the neck is, as long as you see the blow coming, the less chance you're going to have for concussion.
In terms of sports, we know that youth football probably has one of the highest incidence of concussions, but what would be the argument, for example, for boxing or cycling, which is another sport, lacrosse and others, to also, well, not an argument, but how do we also consider those sports as leading to concussions and not just kind of youth football?
Right. One of the roles that we serve is as a ringside physician, and I'm a vice president of the Association of Ringside Professional Physicians. So I kind of know boxing inside out, and I'm conflicted a little bit because on the one hand, the majority of youngsters that are in boxing don't have golf courses and tennis courts as alternatives. And being with a mentor who often is their surrogate father, training them is a very life-changing experience for some of these kids. And some of these kids, where they live, they're safer in the ring than they are out on the streets getting shot. That all having been said, I can't support taking blows to the head purposefully at a very young age. And I think that at a very young age, if I had my druthers, boxing would be without blows to the head. It would just be blows to the body, and the head would be off limits. And you can practice with the same drills on the speed bag and the heavy bag and everything else, but purposely receiving head trauma at a very young age, I don't think is a good thing. Now, I have to balance that with what I said in the beginning, and so I understand the yin and the yang.
Thank you so much.